We don't want to just go back to normal. Obviously, there's a ton of policy innovations internationally, nationally, and locally that could generate out of this to make a much more equitable, interesting, ecologically sensitive world. And that's what we have to be thinking about and doing. But the immediate, you just stay home and don't worry about this, is a completely artificial and brutal crisis in the United States. Completely. And folks need to remember that. And remember where to point the blame at. Now, Donald Trump is not doing too well. There was a period of time at the beginning of this crisis where his poll numbers are actually unusually high. I think it's important for people to look at Trump's numbers generally in two ways. One, for the resistance people who of course hate Trump, and Trump's utterly loathsome and all the rest of it. We know all of this. He's not a uniquely unpopular president. It's important to remember that. And that's not just with his base, to the extent that there's sort of, I wouldn't even call them swing voters. I would call them sort of, I don't even know how you define it, but there are some people who you could define as being in some sort of middle, a grab bag of politics. They don't necessarily like Trump at all, but they don't hate him in the same way that maybe you or I would. Now, on the other hand, he isn't popular and never has been particularly popular. I mean, this is a guy whose numbers are usually in the 40s, and he's generating from a fervent base that he has an incredible ability to communicate with, and of course, maybe the most ineffectual, embarrassing opposition party in modern political history. So those are the dynamics. In the beginning of the crisis, his numbers went up because he's the president, because he's out in front of it rhetorically, and because, of course, the Democrats have no leadership or strategy, ever. And at the same time, there is raw objective realities, and we're in an immense public health and economic crisis. This guy let it happen. And it doesn't matter how much bloviating he does. It's very easy for people to figure out, including people who might be sympathetic to him, his egotism, recklessness, and stupidity that accelerated where we're at. And that's showing up in the numbers. A lot of people, I would say, obviously people in 2016 were delusionally complacent about him not winning. I see certain contingents of people who are, frankly, way too confident that he's going to lose re-election. If we have an election and the trends stay and we have an election, Donald Trump's going to lose. And the reporting is reflecting that. Donald Trump does not like that reporting. And first, let's actually start with this 2-minute segment that Brian Williams, who, as we'll get to in a minute, is, in fact, I think he is a pretty publicly demonstrated liar, but he's not lying about this. This is Brian Williams reporting on Donald Trump's bad poll numbers and, how unfun would it be to be in the meeting where you explain to Donald Trump that he's failing and his numbers suck.
Lit up tonight in blue for the workers of the MTA who keep the buses and rails moving through the mostly stay-at-home city of New York. Well, good evening once again.
Yeah, to be fair, the opening, it's a very mundane clip, but it just goes to show how upset he gets.
Day 1196 of this Trump administration, 188 days now until our presidential election. And on this day, spoken out loud to reporters in the White House, the president said this, and we quote, "This is going away. I think we're going to come up with vaccines and all, but this is going away. It's going to go, it's going to leave, it's going to be gone, it's going to be eradicated." Indeed, the president's son-in-law, as you'll see here in just a moment today, called what we are living through a great success story. For that, today, his proud father-in-law called him a genius. Trump's effort to contain the growing toll on our nation comes as he also attempts to secure a second term in office. Tonight, the Washington Post has new reporting on the challenges for the president and on the impact of weeks of marathon briefings on the polls. The paper says recent internal polling shows him slipping behind Joe Biden in some key swing states and that he erupted during a call with his 2020 campaign manager after hearing that news. Quote, at one point in that call, Trump said he might sue Brad Parscale. Trump told Parscale he did not believe the polling that had been presented to him, even though it came from the campaign and the RNC. NBC News now has confirmed Trump's blow-up. The AP has new details on this story as well. We will...
Threatening to sue Parcells.
Sue Parcells. Dude, he should sue Parcells. Donald Trump, I mean, he's a TV guy. There's no way he's watching this, but I would just like to register that out into the Trump universe. It does sound like bullshit, and he should sue that guy. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, you're paying somebody who, first of all, I don't know who this guy Parcell is. I don't know where he comes from. I know he did some social media for Trump in 2016, or at least PACs related to Trump. And look, maybe he's a talented guy. Maybe he's who Trump deserves as campaign manager. Or maybe he's a know-nothing loser who's profiting off of Donald Trump's name and now giving him bad poll advice. I don't know. Yeah. But I'd certainly look into it and try to figure out what the hell is going on.
It's like that scene in Spaceballs where he's like, I'm surrounded by assholes. Like, are you an idiot? Wait, are you absolutely an incompetent moron? I'm surrounded by incompetence.
Surrounded by total incompetence. I mean,
actually, the problem is they're competent and telling him what he doesn't want to hear. So.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like, it's just like, hey, look, I mean, we can. It's one thing to agree that a pandemic isn't going to hit the United States, but at a certain point, we got to tell him that he's about to F up Michigan. And of course, anytime Donald Trump throws a tantrum and it's reported on, then there is the response to the reporting. I'm not having a tantrum. Here's Donald Trump on Twitter. Lion Brian Williams of MSDNC. There's always grains of truth. There's always grains of truth in what Trump says.
I mean, he's got 3 truths in that.
Okay, yeah, actually, this is starting with 3 objective truths. Lion Brian Williams of MSDNC.
There's 2.
A Comcast, boom, that's a big truth. Comcast scam company. I'm sure anybody that's used that particular outfit would agree and know exactly what Trump's talking about. Wouldn't know the truth if it was nailed on his wooden fork. Remember? When he lied about his bravery on the helicopter? Totally made up story. He's a true dummy who was thrown off of network news like a dog.
Like a dog. Yep. If you want to fund Trump search on Twitter, search for all of real Donald Trump's tweets that say like a dog, because there's some pretty good stuff there.
Yeah, if he puts in a like a dog, he means it.
His dad must have said that. There must have been some like weird formative experience with his ultra weird, bizarre father who said that. That has to be deep in the Trump psyche somehow.
Yeah, I like Donald Trump calling other people liars too. You lied once. Remember that time you were busted lying? Never happened to me.
But he's like, again, it's that difference of all these people lie, but they have some like who even, I don't even know the extent that matters. I actually think it's very politically effective for Trump that because he is so uniquely mentally and emotionally damaged that he doesn't perceive his lies as lies. I think that helps him as a communicator,
right?
Paradoxically, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, people are very used to like a modern set of liars and people who, they spin and they talk around things.
Yeah.
And then Trump just came along and was just like, I didn't do that. Like, do you remember that clip? I can never get over that clip of the Libya one where he was on, I think, I don't know, one of the Sunday morning network shows. And it was one of the time where they first started to take him seriously. And that he was railing about Libya, which, again, was a horrifying disaster. And then they play this clip. He's sitting there. They're like, you're attacking the Obama administration every day about Libya, but what about this? And then they go, the idiots in the Trump Tower in 2011. He's just like, I've met Gaddafi.
Right.
I've dealt with him. We got to go, and it would be fantastic. And then they go back to him, and he's just like, we've talked about this a million times. His response was essentially, well, in my version, everything went great. It didn't go great. So obviously that wasn't what I was proposing.
Yeah. I feel like he'd be good at a polygraph because where people, when they're lying, they're so
Yes.
focused on the truth. He's just already moved on to what the lie gets him.
Exactly. It's like circumstances precede essence. Okay.